My brother Thomas got the company. My brother Michael got the commercial properties worth $3 million. They split Dad's investment portfolio right down the middle, another $2 million between them. I got $75,000 and a handwritten note that said, "James, you already have your military pension. Let your brothers build their futures. Love, Dad." $75,000. While they walked away with $4.2 million worth of Morrison and Sons Construction, the company I'd worked alongside Dad to build every summer before I shipped out. The company where I'd poured concrete and framed houses and learned to read blueprints by the time I was 16. The company that had and Sons in the name plural because Dad always said all three of us were part of it. I sat in that lawyer's office in downtown Richmond, Virginia, staring at the mahogany table while Thomas and Michael couldn't even look me in the eye. Thomas kept adjusting his tie. Michael studied his phone like it held the secrets of the universe. And our mother, Patricia Morrison, sitting there in her black dress with her pearls, she just nodded like this, made perfect sense. "Any questions?" the lawyer asked. A thin man named Hendricks who'd known our family for 30 years. I had about 1,000 questions, but the one that came out was, "Why?" Patricia's lips pressed into a thin line. "James, you've had a good life. The Army took care of you. You have your pension, your VA benefits. Your brothers need to establish themselves. Thomas has 3 children to support. Michael just bought that house. You never even married." "I served 30 years, I said quietly. My voice sounded far away, like it was coming from someone else. 3 tours in Vietnam. 2 in Desert Storm. I was 52 when I finally retired. I came home to help Dad run the business for the last decade. I worked." "Yes, and Dad appreciated that," Thomas finally spoke up. He was 48, 10 years younger than me, had never heard a shot fired in anger in his entire life. "But you can't expect the same inheritance when you weren't even—" He stopped. Caught himself. "When I wasn't even what?" I asked. The silence in that room could have suffocated a person. Michael cleared his throat. "Look, Jim, it's nothing personal. It's just practical. You're already set. We're not." I looked at the note again. Dad's handwriting. The man who'd taught me how to throw a baseball, how to drive a truck, how to be a man. The man who'd hugged me at the airport when I left for Fort Benning in 1968. The man who'd written me letters every week for 30 years, no matter where the Army sent me. Saigon, Frankfurt, Kuwait, Kosovo. "Let your brothers build their futures," the note said. What about my future? I was 63 years old. My back hurt from years of jumping out of helicopters. My hearing was shot from artillery fire. My pension was comfortable but not extravagant. I'd spent my entire adult life serving my country, then came home to help the family business. And this was my reward? "I need air," I said, standing up. No one stopped me. I walked out of that office into the bright May sunshine. Richmond was beautiful that time of year, the dogwoods blooming, the James River sparkling in the distance. I'd been born in this city, raised here, left here a scared 19-year-old kid who thought he was invincible. Came back a man who'd seen things that still woke him up at 3 in the morning. I sat on a bench outside the building and pulled out my phone. There was one person I needed to call. "Jim?" Sarah Chen answered on the second ring. "How did it go?" Sarah ran the veterinary clinic where I'd been volunteering since I retired from the business last year. She was 35, brilliant, kind, and had somehow become my closest friend in Richmond. We'd met when I brought in a stray dog I'd found behind the grocery store. She'd patched up the dog, found him a home, and then asked if I'd be interested in helping at the clinic. "They got everything," I told her. "Thomas and Michael. $4 million. I got $75,000 and a note telling me I'm already set." "Jesus, Jim." "Yeah, that's not right. You helped build that company. You." "It doesn't matter what I did," I said. Patricia made it clear. "I have my pension. I should be grateful." "Grateful? Jim, you're their brother." I laughed, but it came out bitter. Am I, though? That was the question that had been eating at me since Thomas almost slipped up in the lawyer's office. When I wasn't even what was he about to say? "Come by the clinic," Sarah said. "We've got a chocolate lab who just had surgery. Could use someone to sit with her while she recovers. Sometimes dogs are better company than family." Yeah, I said. I think you're right. I'd been back in Richmond for 11 years. After retiring from the Army in 2012, I'd jumped right into helping Dad with Morrison and Sons. The construction industry had changed a lot since the 1960 seconds, but the fundamentals were the same. Build it right, build it strong. Stand behind your work. Dad was 75 when I came home. Still sharp, still strong, but ready to slow down. Jimmy, he'd said he was the only one who ever called me that I'm glad you're here. This business needs a Morrison who understands what hard work really means. We'd run the company together for a decade. He'd handled the big client relationships and the strategic planning. I'd managed the crews and the projects. We'd grown the business by 30% in those 10 years. Landed contracts with the city. Built that new school in Henrico County. Renovated the historic courthouse. And then 6 months ago, Dad had a stroke. Massive. He'd been dead before the ambulance arrived. I'd been the one to find him. I'd driven over to his house that morning like I did every Sunday. We had breakfast together, always the same thing. Eggs and bacon and coffee strong enough to strip paint. I'd let myself in with my key, called out Dad. No answer. Found him in his recliner. TV still on. Coffee cup on the side table. Gone. I'd held his hand and called 911 even though I knew. 30 years in the Army teaches you what death looks like. The funeral had been huge. Dad was beloved in Richmond. 300 people showed up. Thomas gave the eulogy, talking about what a great father and businessman Dad had been. Michael read a poem. I stood at attention in my dress uniform and saluted when they played taps, even though Dad hadn't been military. It just felt right. Patricia had been stoic through it all. Dry-eyed, composed. She'd married Dad when I was 6 years old. My biological mother had died from cancer when I was 4. Patricia was the only mother I'd really known. She'd raised me alongside Thomas and Michael, who were her sons from a previous marriage. Or at least, that's what I'd always believed. Now I was wondering what else I'd been wrong about. I spent the afternoon at Sarah's clinic, sitting with the chocolate lab. Her name was Mocha, and she'd been hit by a car, broken leg, internal injuries. Sarah had saved her life, but recovery would be long. You're good with her, Sarah said, watching me stroke Mocha's head. She trusts you. Animals make sense, I said. They don't lie. They don't play games. They're either loyal or they're not. Sarah sat down next to me. She was small, barely 5'2", with straight black hair always pulled back in a ponytail. Her family had emigrated from Taiwan when she was 10. She'd put herself through vet school, working 3 jobs. She understood hard work and sacrifice. Talk to me, Jim. What's really going on? So I told her. About the will. About the money. About Thomas's slip-up. About the feeling I'd had my entire life that I didn't quite fit in the Morrison family. Thomas and Michael are both blonde, I said. Blue-eyed. Average height. I'm 6'3" with dark hair and brown eyes. Patricia used to joke that I took after my real mother, my dad's first wife. But I've seen pictures. She was blonde too. Danish ancestry. Have you ever taken a DNA test? Sarah asked. No. Never had a reason to. But now. I shrugged. I don't know. Maybe I should. What would you want to find out? I thought about that. What did I want? Answers, maybe. Or just confirmation that I wasn't crazy for feeling like an outsider in my own family. I want to know why, I finally said. Why Dad would work beside me for 10 years, call me his partner, tell me we were building something together, and then leave me scraps, while Thomas and Michael, who haven't swung a hammer in their lives, get everything. Maybe the answer isn't in the DNA, Sarah said gently. Maybe it's in asking the question directly. She was right. I knew she was right. I went to Patricia's house that evening. She lived in the same place she and Dad had bought 40 years ago, a beautiful colonial in the West End with a circular driveway and magnolia trees in the yard. She answered the door, still in her black dress from the lawyer's office. James, I didn't expect you. Can I come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside. The house smelled like it always had lavender and lemon polish. Patricia kept everything immaculate. Not a pillow out of place. Not a picture frame crooked. We sat in the living room, surrounded by family photos. There I was at my high school graduation, my military portraits over the years. Private, corporal, sergeant, staff sergeant, sergeant major. My retirement ceremony with Dad standing next to me in a Morrison and Sons polo shirt, both of us grinning. What Thomas almost said today, I started. In the lawyer's office. What was he about to say? Patricia folded her hands in her lap. Her wedding ring caught the light. She'd never taken it off, even though Dad had been gone 6 months. James, you have to understand. Just tell me the truth. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, your father and I agreed it was better if you never knew. My stomach dropped. Never knew what? You were already 6 when I married your father. You'd lost your mother. We didn't want to confuse you or make you feel different. We wanted you to be part of the family. What are you saying? Your father, Richard Morrison. He wasn't your biological father. The world tilted. I gripped the armrest of the chair to steady myself. What? Your mother, Diane, she had an affair. She got pregnant. She told Richard the truth, and he forgave her. He chose to raise you as his own. When she died, he never told you. And when I came into the picture, he asked me to love you like you were mine. And did you? The question came out harsh. Patricia looked away. I tried. But you were always his son, James. His project. He poured everything into you. Military school. College fund. Supporting your Army career. And when you came back, bringing you into the business, Thomas and Michael, they were mine. They needed to be provided for. They got $4 million, I said, my voice shaking. I worked that business for 10 years. I bled for it. And I got $75,000. You weren't his blood, Patricia said quietly. The business was meant for his legacy, for the Morrison line. Thomas and Michael may have my last name, but they're Richard's stepchildren. You were. She paused. You were a reminder of Diane's betrayal. He loved you, James, but he couldn't leave you the business knowing you weren't really a Morrison. I stood up. My legs felt like they might give out. Who was he? I asked. My biological father? I don't know. Richard never told me. He said it didn't matter. It matters to me. James, you've known this my entire life. 37 years of marriage to Dad, and you never thought I deserved the truth. We were protecting you. No, I said. You were protecting yourselves. And Thomas and Michael, everyone but me. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed in my small apartment, the one I'd rented when I retired, figuring I'd upgrade once Dad and I really grew the business, once my share came through, and stared at the ceiling. 63 years old, 30 years in the Army, 10 years building a business. And none of it meant anything because I wasn't a real Morrison. At 3 in the morning, I pulled out my laptop, started searching. DNA testing services, private investigators, adoption records databases. If Richard Morrison wasn't my father, then who was? And why had no one thought I deserved to know? I called Sarah the next morning. Can you meet me for coffee? Of course. You okay? No, I admitted. But I need help figuring something out. We met at a diner near the clinic. I told her everything Patricia had said. Sarah's face went through about 6 different emotions. Shock, anger, sympathy, more anger. She just dropped that on you? After your dad's funeral? After cutting you out of the inheritance, she tells you you're not even related? Apparently it was a secret everyone agreed on, I said bitterly. For my own good. That's bullshit, Jim. You had a right to know. Yeah, well, now I do. I pulled out my phone, showed her the DNA testing site I'd been looking at. I ordered one of these, should arrive in a few days. But that only helps if my biological father or his relatives have also done a test. What about a private investigator? Someone who specializes in this stuff? I've been looking. Found a guy in Richmond who does adoption searches and biological parent cases. Frank Delgado, former cop. Reviews look good. How much? $200 for a consultation. More if he takes the case. Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. Her fingers were small but strong surgeon's hands. Do it, Jim. You deserve answers. I met Frank Delgado 3 days later in his office above a pawn shop in Southside. He was maybe 55, stocky, with gray hair and sharp eyes that had probably seen everything. "Mr. Morrison," he said, shaking my hand, "tell me what you need." I laid it out. The will, Patricia's revelation, the complete lack of information about who my biological father was. Frank took notes on a yellow legal pad. "Do you have your birth certificate?" "Yeah. It lists Richard Morrison as my father." "That's common. If your mother was married to Richard when you were born, he'd be listed automatically. Did your mother leave any papers, diaries, letters?" "Everything went to Patricia when she died, and Patricia's not exactly offering to help." "What about other relatives? Your mother's family?" "Diane's parents, my grandparents, they passed away in the 90s. She had a sister, Carol, but they weren't close. Last I heard, she was living in Arizona." Frank nodded. "Okay, here's what I can do. I'll pull what records I can: birth records, census data, military records if applicable. I'll try to track down your aunt, see if she knows anything. And I'll cross-reference with the DNA test you're taking. Sometimes we get lucky and find a close match." "How long does this usually take?" "Depends. Could be days, could be months. But I'll stay on it." I hired him on the spot. The DNA test kit arrived that afternoon. I swabbed my cheek, packaged it up, sent it off. "Results in 6 to 8 weeks, the instructions said. I went back to work at the clinic. Sarah had been offering me a paid position, clinic manager, helping with operations and client relations, but I'd kept it volunteer because I was still working the construction business. Now, with no business to work, I accepted. "You're overqualified for this," Sarah said, laughing. "I'm 63 years old and just found out my entire life was a lie," I replied. "Managing a veterinary clinic sounds pretty good right now." The work helped. There's something grounding about caring for animals. A German shepherd with hip dysplasia doesn't care about inheritance disputes. A cockatiel with a broken wing just needs someone to be gentle and patient. I'd been doing this for 2 weeks when Frank called. "Mr. Morrison, I think I found something." My heart started pounding. "What?" "Can you come to my office? I'd rather show you in person." I was there in 20 minutes. Frank had papers spread across his desk. Documents, printouts, old photographs. "Your Aunt Carol," he said. "Took me a while, but I tracked her down in Scottsdale. She's 79 now, not in great health, but her mind is sharp. And Jim. She's been waiting 40 years for someone to ask her about this." He slid a photograph across the desk. A black and white photo, creased and faded. A young woman, Diane, my mother. I recognized her from other pictures, standing with a man I'd never seen before. Tall, dark-haired, handsome in an old-fashioned way. They were both smiling, his arm around her shoulders. "Who is he?" His name was William Gray. He owned Gray Manufacturing, made industrial equipment, parts for the automotive industry. Big company, very successful. He and your mother met at a charity event in 1961. He was married. She was married. And according to Carol, they fell hard for each other. Was he my father? Carol thinks so. She says Diane came to her crying in early 1962, said she was pregnant and didn't know what to do. Richard Morrison was overseas with the Army. He was career military back then, before he got out and started the construction company. Diane confessed everything to him when he came home. He had 2 choices: divorce her or raise the child as his own. He chose the second option. What happened to William Gray? Frank's face fell. He died in 1995. Car accident. But Jim, he left behind a family. A wife, who's also deceased, and 3 children. My half-siblings. Do they know about me? No. According to Carol, William never told his family. It would have destroyed his marriage, his reputation. But Frank pulled out another document. He left something interesting in his will. A trust fund, administered through a lawyer, with no beneficiary named, just instructions that if a certain person ever came forward with DNA proof, the trust would be released to them. I stared at him. How much? The trust has been growing for 30 years. Last valuation was $3.8 million. I couldn't breathe. He knew, I said. William Gray knew he had a son out there somewhere. Carol thinks he did. She thinks Diane told him about the pregnancy, and even though they couldn't be together, He wanted to make sure you were taken care of, just in case you ever came looking. $3.8 million. More than Thomas and Michael combined. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the fact that somewhere out there, a man I'd never met had cared enough to leave part of himself behind for me. The children, I said. William's other kids. Do they know about the trust? They know it exists, but not who it's for. The lawyer who administers it, Gerald Steinberg, practices in Alexandria. He's legally bound to silence until someone comes forward with proof. And if I do? What happens to William's other children? The trust is separate from the estate. They'll still get everything William left them. This doesn't take anything away from them, Jim. This was always meant for you. I thought about Patricia's words. You weren't his blood. The business was meant for his legacy. Well, turned out I had blood after all. Just not the blood the Morrisons wanted to claim. What do? I asked Frank. First, we wait for your DNA results. Then, if you want, we reach out to William Gray's children. They might want to meet you. They might not. But either way, that trust is yours. I left Frank's office in a daze, drove to the clinic. Sarah took one look at my face and pulled me into her office. What happened? I told her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Your biological father set aside almost $4 million for you. A man you never met. That's not about money, Jim. That's about love. That's about someone who couldn't be in your life making sure you'd be okay anyway. What if his kids hate me? I asked. What if they think I'm some kind of scam artist trying to take advantage? Then they're not worth knowing, Sarah said firmly. But maybe they'll surprise you. Maybe they've been wondering about that trust fund too. The DNA results came back 5 weeks later. I was having coffee with Sarah when the email notification pinged. Your results are ready. My hands shook as I logged in. And there it was. Matches. Close relatives. 3 names I didn't recognize. First cousins, the site said, through a shared grandparent. I clicked on the first name. A profile popped up. Margaret Gray Thompson, 58, Alexandria, Virginia. William Gray's daughter. I sat there staring at the screen. Jim? Sarah's voice seemed far away. You okay? I have a sister, I said, and 2 brothers. William had 3 kids. They're all in the system. Are their profiles public? Can you contact them? I clicked through. Margaret's profile was partially public. So was David Gray's and Robert Gray's. 3 strangers who shared my blood. 3 people who had no idea I existed. I drafted a message to Margaret. Deleted it. Drafted another one. Deleted that too. Just be honest, Sarah said. Tell her the truth. So I did. Dear Margaret, my name is James Morrison. I'm 63 years old, and I live in Richmond, Virginia. I recently discovered through DNA testing that I'm your half-brother. Our father was William Gray. I know this must be shocking, and I understand if you need time to process this. I'm not looking for anything except the truth about where I came from. If you're willing, I'd like to meet you. If not, I respect that too. Respectfully, James. I hit send before I could change my mind. 3 hours later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Is this James Morrison? A woman's voice, cultured, with a slight southern accent. Yes, this is Margaret Thompson. I got your message on the DNA site. I'm trying to understand. You're saying you're our brother? Half-brother. My mother had a relationship with your father in 1961. I was born in 1962. I only found out about all this a few weeks ago. She was quiet. Then, can you meet me? Tomorrow? I'm in Alexandria, but I can drive to Richmond. I can come to you, I said. Where do you want to meet? There's a coffee shop in Old Town. King Street Coffee. Do you know it? I'll find it. 1 o'clock. And James. I'm bringing my brothers, David and Robert. We need to do this together. I understand. I drove to Alexandria the next day. Sarah offered to come with me, but I told her I needed to do this alone. King Street Coffee was a cozy place with brick walls and the smell of roasted beans. I got there at 12:30, ordered a black coffee I didn't drink, and waited. They arrived together at 1 o'clock sharp. I recognized them from their profile pictures. Margaret was tall and elegant, gray hair in a neat bob. David was my age, with William Gray's dark hair gone silver. Robert was younger, maybe 50, with glasses and a kind face. They saw me and stopped. Just stared. Margaret spoke first. "You have his eyes. My God, you have Dad's eyes exactly." We sat down. It was awkward at first. "What do you say to siblings you didn't know existed?" "Tell us everything," David said. "From the beginning." So I did. My mother, Richard Morrison, the will, Patricia's revelation, the search for the truth. When I finished, Margaret had tears in her eyes. "We always wondered," she said, "about the trust. Dad set it up 2 years before he died. Wouldn't tell us who it was for. Mom asked him once if he had another child somewhere. He didn't confirm or deny, just said that if the person ever came forward, we'd know." "Did you resent it?" I asked. "The trust?" "No," Robert said. "We had everything. Dad left us the company, the houses, plenty of money. The trust was separate. It felt, I don't know, like a mission he'd left us. To find whoever it was for and make sure they were okay. And here you are," David said. "Our brother, 63 years old, 30 years in the army. A good man if your story is anything to go by." "I don't want to disrupt your lives," I said. "I just wanted answers." "Answers," Margaret repeated. "Jim, can I call you Jim? You're not disrupting anything. You're completing something. Dad left that trust for you because he couldn't be in your life. But we can, if you'll let us." I didn't trust myself to speak. Just nodded. We talked for 3 hours. They told me about William Gray, about the company he built, about his humor, his work ethic, his devotion to family. I told them about my 30 years in the army, about coming home and working construction, about the betrayal I felt from the Morrisons. "You're not a Morrison," Margaret said firmly. "You're a Gray, and we'd like to welcome you home." 2 months later, I stood in Gerald Steinberg's law office in Alexandria. Margaret, David, and Robert were there. Sarah came too, at my request. Mr. Steinberg was an old man, probably 80, but his mind was sharp. He'd been administering William Gray's trust for 30 years, waiting for this moment. "Mr. Morrison, or should I say Mr. Gray, the DNA test confirms your relationship to William Gray. The trust he established in 1993 had one directive, to be released to his biological son, should that son ever come forward with proof. Today, that directive is fulfilled." He slid papers across the table. "The trust had grown to $4.1 million. Your father wanted you to have this," Mr. Steinberg said. "He never knew you, but he thought about you. He hoped you were happy, wherever you were, and he wanted to make sure that if you ever needed anything, this would be here." I signed the papers. Sarah squeezed my hand. Afterward, Margaret invited everyone to her house. It was a beautiful place in Alexandria, filled with photos and memories. She showed me pictures of William Gray, my father. I saw myself in his face, in his stance, in the way he smiled. "There's something else," David said. He handed me a letter. "Dad left this with Mr. Steinberg. Instructions were to give it to you if you ever came forward." My hands shook as I opened it. "To my son, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if you even know I exist. But if you're reading this, it means you found your way home. I'm sorry I couldn't be part of your life. I'm sorry your mother and I couldn't make things work. But I want you to know that I thought about you. Every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone I imagined you might be reaching. I hoped you had a good life. I hoped someone loved you the way a father should. I left you this trust because money is the only thing I can give you now. But what I really want to give you is a family. My children, your brothers and sister, they're good people. If you're reading this, they know about you now. I hope they welcome you. I hope you give them a chance. You're a Gray. You always were. With love, William Gray." I couldn't see the words anymore through my tears. Sarah put her arm around me. Margaret was crying too. So were David and Robert. "We're glad you're here," Margaret said. "We're so glad you found us." I went back to Richmond that evening, but everything felt different. I had a family now, a real one. Not people who tolerated me or kept me around out of obligation. People who wanted me, who chose me. The next week, I went to Patricia's house one last time. She answered the door, looking guarded. "James, I'm not here to fight," I said. "I just wanted you to know. I found my father, William Gray, and I found my brothers and sister. They're good people, and I'm going to be okay." "The trust," she said. "I heard about it. Thomas and Michael told me." She looked bitter. "So you got your money after all." "It's not about the money," I said. "It never was. It was about knowing where I came from, about being wanted. We wanted you. Richard raised you." "No," I said gently. "Richard kept me. He provided for me. But he never let me forget that I wasn't really his. Not when it mattered, not when he wrote his will. But you know what? William Gray left me a trust fund and a letter, and he never even met me. That's what a father does. He makes sure his son is taken care of, even if he can't be there." I turned to leave, then stopped. "I hope you and Thomas and Michael are happy with the company, with the money, with the Morrison legacy. But I'm a Gray now, and that's where I belong." I started working full-time at Sarah's clinic. Took the title of General Manager. Used part of the trust money to help her expand. We opened a second location in Southside, focused on affordable care for low-income families. It felt good to build something again, something that mattered. Margaret, David, and Robert became part of my life. Sunday dinners at Margaret's house, fishing trips with David, helping Robert with his kids' science project. All the things I'd missed for 63 years. One Saturday, 6 months after I found them, we all drove to William Gray's grave. The 5 of us stood there, Margaret, David, Robert, me, and Sarah, who'd become so much more than a friend by then. "I wish I'd known you," I said to the headstone. "But thank you for making sure I'd be okay. Thank you for my brothers and sister. Thank you for thinking of me." "He did know you," Margaret said softly. "Maybe not in person, but a father knows his child. Somehow, he knew." That evening, sitting on Sarah's porch with a beer in hand, watching the sunset, I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the revelation, the search, the discovery. I'd lost a family I thought was mine, the Morrisons with their $4 million and their company and their real legacy. But I'd found something better. I'd found the Grays. I'd found people who looked at me and saw a brother, a son, a family member worth fighting for. "You're quiet," Sarah said, curling up next to me. "Just thinking about what family means. And what does it mean?" "It means the people who show up," I said. "Not because they have to. Not because you share a name or a house or a business. But because they choose you. Because they see you for who you really are and love you anyway." Sarah kissed my cheek. "That's what you are to me too, you know. Family." "Yeah," I said, pulling her close. "I know." The $75,000 from the Morrisons sat in my bank account, untouched. I didn't need it, didn't want it. Eventually, I donated it to a veterans charity in Dad Richard Morrison's name. He'd been a soldier once. He'd understood duty and honor and sacrifice, even if he couldn't extend that understanding to me in the end. But William Gray? He'd understood something deeper. He'd understood that love isn't about being there for every moment. It's about making sure the people you love are okay, even when you're gone. Even when you never got the chance to hold them or know them or see them grow up. I was 63 years old. I'd spent 30 years in the Army, 10 years building a business, and 6 months discovering who I really was. Sometimes the people who brought you up aren't your real family. Sometimes your real family is waiting on the other side of a DNA test, ready to welcome you home. Sometimes it's the woman who runs a veterinary clinic and sees something in a grumpy veteran worth caring about. Sometimes it's the rescue dogs and cats who trust you to be gentle when the world has been hard. Family isn't about blood, though blood can matter. It's not about money, though money can help. It's not about names or legacies or who gets the company. It's about the people who see you for exactly who you are, including all your scars and mistakes and rough edges, and say, "Yes, you belong here. You're one of us." And standing in Sarah's clinic, watching her work, Knowing Margaret and David and Robert were just a phone call away, remembering William Gray's letter and his gift and his love across 40 years of silence, I finally understood what it meant to be home. I was James Morrison for 63 years. But I was always meant to be James Gray. And that made all the difference.